Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It's Monday. It is October 28th. It is 2024. We have a 9-game NBA slate to talk about here on today's podcast. Joined today by my good buddy, Will Priester. Chief, good to see you, my friend. Good to see you're well. And thanks for doing the podcast early. We got an early podcast. It is Sunday night at like 8:40. Very early pod this on Sunday night for this Monday slate because I've literally been up for over 30 hours and I need sleep. So I appreciate Will working with me. My body is like, hey, you need to get some sleep. And I messaged Will and he's like, yeah, we could do it early. So I was very grateful for that. How are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. Glad to be here. Glad to be able to come and hang out with you a little bit and talk about this newly introduced NBA season. We're only a few days in, Stevie, but I'm seeing a lot of interesting things and good things from some people and not so good things from others. So hopefully, we'll cover, a few of those tidbits on the slate. But yeah, definitely, like I said, glad to come on and always hang out with the listeners and, talk a little shop here.
Yeah, I mean, I was working on the November schedule, and I'm like, man, I'm already super pumped about the in-season tournament. Like,
Yeah,
I know it's like a couple weeks away still, but I'm already pumped. Like, I thought it was awesome last year. I'm probably more excited for the in-season tournament than the actual playoffs.
It's just right at the beginning of the season, and guys are kind of
perfect timing.
It's their jockey. It is fun, man. It's so fun.
We got all kinds of new rotations. We got healthy players. The in-season tournament last year was phenomenal, and I expect it to be the same this year. So,
and I know we got to go, Stevie, but I think one of the coolest things about the in-season tournament were the stages or the brackets, if you will. Like as people got down to getting close, and there were those point differentials. Remember that came into play late for guys like Golden State and Phoenix. It was incredible. So
yeah, they were trying to run up the score and stuff. It was it was wild. So yeah, I mean, just absolutely fun. So what's up, chat? Yeezy, Dave, Carolina guy. We appreciate you hanging out with us live. We didn't think there would be a ton of people hanging out with us live. The football game just got kind of kicked off. How was your NFL slate? You have a good slate for NFL?
No, I did not. I was a few plays away from breaking this thing wide open, Stevie, and I had a lot of good plays, but I just didn't have the right combinations. And so when it happens like that, it's like, well, on to the next one, on to the next one.
You had one like really great tournament team. That was a Hurts, Chase, Brown stack that had like Otten and Tillman and Achane. And it needed Javonte Williams, who I was very high on. I played a ton of Javonte and he didn't do anything. And I needed AJ Brown, but that team ended up covering some losses for me. Really good day in NASCAR again. One of my main lineups did really well, which if your main lineup in NASCAR is doing well, you're going to do well because I played in multiple contests. So good Sunday for me, good Saturday for me, and ready to talk some hoops. We get started with my Magic. We got Indiana heading to Orlando, 224.5 total in this one. The Magic, a 5.5 point favorite. It is a back-to-back for the Pacers. Isaac out, or questionable for Orlando. Not too concerned with the Pacers on a back-to-back year as far as like who's playing, who's not playing kind of thing. I think that everybody potentially plays here for the Pacers. The one thing that worries me a little bit, Will, is that game on Sunday with the 76ers did go into overtime. Yeah. So we saw pretty big minutes from Siakam. He had 40. Turner had 37. Halliburton had 37. So, I mean, that's a little concerning. But I don't know if I necessarily want to play the Pacers against Orlando anyway.
Yeah, that was kind of my read, Stevie. So even outside of the overtime, this was going to be a better matchup for Orlando than it was for Indiana in terms of Indiana was probably going to push Orlando a little bit on pace, like, push them a touch. But Orlando's been a good defensive team, and I know it sounds crazy, but bringing in old man KCP, Steve, we've been playing KCP since he got drafted by the Detroit Pistons. But one of the things that people I feel like have brought him in for is to help solidify wing defense and give you a little bit of outside shooting.
Yeah,
and this is what Orlando is about. Like, they want to play lockdown defense. They don't necessarily want to score 140 points a game. They're comfortable in the 110 area. And so I think this is a tough matchup for Indiana defensively. So I'm really not thrilled about this team in general at all today. I'm just not. I don't think this is the right spot. Catching them on a back-to-back early against a tough defensive team, I think it's the wrong time to invest in them.
Yeah, so here's the thing for me on the Pacers. Like, the Pacers have been playing incredibly slow so far, and the Magic have been playing great defense, and they don't want to run either. So, I mean, just so many reasons not to play the Pacers in this spot, in my opinion. So, yeah, I mean, overall, not a ton of interest. I have been playing Miles Turner. I think Miles Turner getting these types of minutes definitely has some upside, but not in this matchup. So, out on the Pacers, and then on the Orlando side, Franz has had some good games. I mean, this guy has at least 39 DraftKings points in 3 straight games. We know the Pacers, not a good defensive team. So I definitely don't mind him and Paulo. But overall, this is one of my least favorite games on the entire slate.
Yeah, same here.
And it's the 7:00 game, right? Like, you don't need to necessarily play anybody from this game because,
And I think that's where I was going to be headed. You put a nice bow on it, Stevie, before I even got there. So I'll just reiterate, you can fade this game and win a tournament. That's just the way I feel about it. So I mean, we can start this slate at 7:30.
Yeah, I mean, that was my initial thought. Like, these two teams by themselves, sure. I mean, can you play some of these guys? Sure. But I don't see it today overall.
I do think Franz, like you mentioned, I do think he's still cheap enough at 7,300. Like, he might be the one guy I feel like has enough meat on the bone. Like, even for Paolo at 88, like, I need him scoring 50 plus here to feel really good.
I'll say Wendell Carter Jr. is still very fair price tag wise. He's just not shooting a ton. You're really just kind of relying on rebounding and defense for him. And I mean, he is a phenomenal defender, so he does have that upside. Washington at Atlanta. We go from that game to this game. No total in this game. Atlanta is on a back-to-back. We'll see if any injury news comes out of that. Bogdanovich still dealing with a hamstring. I highly doubt he's back. We saw DeAndre Hunter have an incredible game the other night. I think it was Friday night against your Hornets. Played really well, and then ended up sitting on Sunday with a knee. So we'll have to see. We'll monitor that news. And on the Washington side, Bay and Brogdon still out. Let's start with Washington. Kind of a new look Washington team. We haven't had them on the podcast yet this season. I don't know why, but they haven't been on the slate yet. So what are your thoughts here on the Wizards?
So I do think this is an interesting spot for the Wizards. I actually have a little interest in Jordan Poole here, Stevie. This is a guy that we saw him put up 44 against Boston, 31 against Cleveland. I feel like those are two comparable teams. Only played 24 minutes in the Cleveland game, but he looks to be playing much better. And so you're talking about a guy that has upside. Stevie, he's took 17 shots the first game, 9 shots the second game, but it looks like they're committed to giving him strong minutes. So I'm perfectly fine with rolling him out in this type of a spot. Do you want to get in some Alex Sarr? Like, maybe, I think he's still cheap enough and still kind of has some meat in the bone here at 5,400. Getting about 25 minutes a game. We saw a little bit of that upside against Cleveland where he took 10 shots. I'm not saying he's a must play, but a game in Atlanta where it's going to be a little bit more high pace, maybe a few more shots around the rim. I think he's, a reasonable play. But all in all, my interest here mostly lies with Poole. Like, I'm not really. I feel like they're kind of bringing Kuzma along, if you will. I know it's kind of been 2 blowouts, but I think, him getting healthy is a concern for me, and maybe he proves me wrong and comes out here and torches Atlanta. But I think they're bringing him along a little slightly slower than these other guys. So I love Jordan Poole here. He's my favorite play from the Washington Wizards.
Yeah, I mean, both these teams want to push the pace. This total probably comes out over 230. Both these teams want to push the pace. Don't mind the Jordan Poole call. I think Colby's still too cheap. He's played 30 plus minutes in back-to-back games. He took 16 shots the other night, which is definitely something we want to pay attention to against Cleveland. So I'd have to go on game flow. I guess I have it up, so I'll look really quick and see how much of that happened late in that game. So Colby,
I think they're playing him because Kuzma isn't. I don't think they're trying to push Kuzma right now.
Yeah, I mean, Colby had 22 of his fantasy points before the fourth quarter when that game was kind of out of hand. So definitely benefited a little bit, but he typically closes with this rotation. So I don't think it's too crazy to have interest in him at 4,900 here. Valanciunas is a minutes thing. I think if they were playing him minutes, you could definitely take shots, but I don't trust the minutes at all.
Every year with him. Jeez, man.
Yeah, I think he's a good fit in Washington. I just wish he'd play more minutes. He's like one of those guys that I feel like maybe his price comes down to like 4,800 before the play-in tournament and or in-season tournament, and he maybe gets an extra 5 or 6 minutes in those games. That'd be great. The Atlanta side, I mean, we're kind of assuming Bogdanovich is still out. It's a hamstring. He's not close from what I've read. I don't know about this DeAndre Hunter thing. I think that this is definitely one we're kind of paying attention to because if he's out in this one, we saw Reisher draw his first career. Yeah,
Reisher.
Yeah, he drew his first career start, and I mean that game is 4 minutes to go in the third quarter. He has 11 actual points. He's taken 10 shots, and he's played 22 minutes, which is behind Daniels and Young. So, yeah, I mean, watch this Hunter news because Reisher at 4,200 would become an awesome value in this matchup against Washington. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, it's very early in the season, but Washington's not playing defense again. So, very interested in the Atlanta side of this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they're going to continue to give up on Onyeka Okongwu, Stevie, between 25 and 30 minutes at 55.
Well, you see what they're doing, right? They're just splitting the minutes right down the middle with Okongwu and Capella. But
Okongwu's playing slightly more currently.
Yeah, I mean, so Capella will come in and play 4 to 6, and then Okongwu will finish the quarter. Capella will come in and play 4 to 6, and then Okongwu will finish the quarter. I think it's just basically where the timeouts fall more than anything else, or like stoppage of play. But I think right now, if they could get Capella to do 5 to 6 minutes, that's very consistent, right? Like he's played 20 and 22 minutes. They're just basically splitting the 5 minutes right now for Atlanta. So I was kind of disappointed in Okongwu not taking a ton of shots against Charlotte. He did hit his prop. We had his over 7.5 alt line prop.
The gift that keeps on giving.
Man, it's something that we're just going to bet all year, right? What are your thoughts here on Atlanta?
Man, listen. I think we talked about this to start the season, if I'm not mistaken, Stevie, and that was that Trae Young was going to get back to being like elite level scoring, assisting. You take DeJounte Murray out of this lineup, and all of a sudden Trae Young's just back to just blistering people from a fantasy perspective. Stevie, 59 fantasy points opening night, 71 against Charlotte. And he's 9,800, and he gets a matchup with Washington. Bombs away, full go, full steam ahead with Trae Young for me. Even if he fails here, Stevie, it's the right call. If I told you right now, Trae Young got you 62 in this spot, I think we take it at 9,800. So I like Trae Young here. I'm perfectly fine. I talked about Okongwu. You talked about Reisher. I want to see how Jalen Johnson finishes out this game tonight. I just kind of want to see some upside. There's a fair amount of hands in the pot here. Like Dyson Daniels has been playing minutes too, Stevie, and so he's going to be another good play, especially if Hunter sits again. Dyson Daniels at 5,600 is going to be a fantastic play. So I love those guys.
Yeah, I like Daniels either way. For what it's worth, he got in foul trouble against Charlotte, so they kind of had to be careful with his minutes. I watched a lot of that game. Just because I was just very interested on like the Hawks rotation. So I watched a lot of that game. I ended up watching a lot of that game. So Dyson Daniels got in foul trouble, and somebody from Charlotte that got or LaMelo Ball got in foul trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Milwaukee at Boston, 233.5 total. Boston a 9.5 point favorite. Milwaukee back-to-back. And then on the Boston side, Hauser's questionable. Porzingis is out. Middleton assumed out for this game. There's everything I've read is there's no timetable for him to come back. We'll see if everybody else gives it a go. I mean, Giannis has been dealing with this like knee, I feel like, since the beginning of last year. So see if he plays the early back-to-back going into Boston. What are your thoughts here on the Bucks?
Excuse me, Stevie. You're the one that's actually really tired here, and I'm the one that's yawning. Go figure.
I'm way past. I was like, my yawning stage was like 6 hours ago. I'm good. I haven't had many all-nighters in a while, man. I mean, we're getting too old for all-nighters. What's that movie? We're getting too old for this. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember the name of it. And it's
my gosh. Why can't I think of what movie that is? I mean,
oh my gosh.
I know. Chat's gonna
it's on the tip of my tongue, and I'm seeing the actors. You'll remind
Lethal Weapon. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Danny Glover.
Yes, Glover.
Yeah. But yeah. So,
favorite Danny Glover movie?
Let me get back to you on that. I mean, Lethal Weapon was kind of like one, but he's actually been in some interesting movies.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of Lethal Weapon. Angels in the Outfield is one that I always think of him in, like, because I mean that's pure kid Stevie, like that. That was like, and obviously I love baseball. So, I mean, that's probably my favorite one for him. But, I mean, he's played in a ton of movies. Danny Glover does his thing, man.
Yeah. Dame. What to do with Dame against Boston? So, here's the thing, man. Dame has kind of come out this season, Steve, especially with Chris Middleton sideline early again. Giannis are just kind of doing almost everything. And so, you're giving me Dame at 9,300. He scored 30 and 28 points here, first couple games. I know it's Boston, but, Dame's been a guy that could, historically score on anyone. So I'm fine with Dame. I'm fine with Giannis even at 10-9, Stevie. Once again, I know it's Boston, but they play this team all the time, so they're not afraid. So I like him. What I'm disappointed in so far this season is I haven't seen enough from Gary Trent. Now he's played big minutes, Stevie, but we're just not getting the production levels that I was hoping that we were going to get. Torian Prince is 4,400. He's playing big minutes. Guess what? That's who's getting the production. So I think if I'm playing anyone from this game, it's those guys and Torian Prince. And I let the chips fall where they may.
So this isn't my let's get weird GPP play. This isn't. But if you're looking for a large field tournament play, Bobby Portis is your guy. I mean, they're playing him 26 to 28 minutes. He played 26 against Philly, then he played 28, and then he played 27 against the Nets. Milwaukee's kind of off to a very slow start. Like you said, you're not getting the production you're kind of hoping for. Dame against Brooklyn, he shot the ball awful. He scored most of his points from the free throw line. So Bobby Portis is really interesting because if you watch how they do the rotations in Milwaukee, they get Portis in the game, with Dame when they try to give Giannis a breather, and then they leave Portis in there with Giannis, and they do a little bit of two-man stuff. So I think Bobby Portis is a really, really interesting tournament play in this spot. Because Boston has guys that come in off the bench that are big. So I don't love this spot for Lillard or Giannis. Obviously, that thought process would change if someone sits on the back-to-back. So watch that news. Boston side of this game for you, liking anything here for the Celtics?
Man, I haven't really been high on the Celtics in terms of playing them for tournaments or anything like that, Stevie. Like Peyton Pritchard has had some, one really nice game here, but that was in limited minutes. Holiday hasn't been there. Derek White's been good, but now he's priced appropriately. Jaylen Brown's been good, but he's 8,300, and he's had two really good games in back-to-back starts against Washington and Detroit. But go figure, it's Washington and Detroit. Tatum's been spectacular, Steve. Pretty much every game this season. As he approaches 10K, we're getting close. I feel like if there's any game you were going to play him, it's this game. But I'd much prefer to play, if I'm going to spend up, I'd prefer to play Trae Young in a better spot against Washington. So I feel like everybody's priced appropriately. And so they're just kind of out for me with all those hands in the pot versus Milwaukee. I know it's Giannis. I know it's Dame. And I know those guys are going to be extremely productive.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Derek White should have ever got a price increase. Like at 6,300, it makes you make a decision on him. At 6,900, doesn't sound like a lot, but $600 is a lot. I mean, you're wanting almost 4 extra fantasy points for that extra $600. So, we'll kind of have to see if any news comes out for Boston. Hauser potentially being out could potentially open up a few extra minutes, but I'm not necessarily loving this spot. I mean, Milwaukee's defense has kind of been struggling, so I get it if you want to take some shots here. Denver at Toronto, 219.5 total. Denver is 7.5-point favorite. Holmes out for Denver. Barrett questionable, so we'll be watching that news. Brown and Olynyk out and quickly doubtful. Let's start with Denver. What do we like here for the Nuggets?
So ironically, Stevie, maybe this is a shame on me situation. I really didn't expect Christian Braun to play this many minutes. Like, I knew he was going to play, don't get me wrong, but he's playing big minutes here. This is a matchup with Toronto. I mean, Braun's got to be my favorite play from this team just in terms of value, and even outside of value. I just think just in general, he's a great play. Now, clearly you can play Jokic here. I'm not trying to discourage you. He's 11-1. I think he's worth every bit of that 11-1, Stevie. Like, I think that's the right price for him. But Braun is the guy right now for me at this price. I mean, by next week, he'll be, maybe even by a few games later, he'll be 5,500 if he keeps playing this many minutes and being productive. So he's kind of my play in terms of, just value in general. I like him across the board.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate that at all. Like you said, it's kind of a minutes value type of thing. So I don't hate that. I mean, Jokic always in play. He has, one of the highest ceilings on any slate that he's on. So, he's definitely always in play. On the Toronto side, we'll have to kind of pay attention to this quickly in Barrett news. If both are out, if one of them sit, we'll definitely be adjusting some teams here. Not loving what I'm seeing out of Toronto so far to start the season. The minutes are too spread out for my liking. That's what we're trying to predict. We're trying to predict minutes and how well people perform with those minutes. So, I mean, the minutes just kind of spread out all over the place here recently for Toronto. It wouldn't be Monday if we didn't get a mute.
I realized I was muted as soon as my mouth started flapping, and I was trying to get there and click it, and I couldn't make it back in time. But one of the interesting things for me with Toronto this season, I think I mentioned this to kind of kick off the year. I thought Chris Boucher was going to play some minutes to open up the season, and I know he only played 16 against Minnesota, but he's been around 20. There might still be a little meat on the in this spot with Denver I want to play Scotty Barnes. I think the upside is there, but I don't quite know how this is going to shake out. I just think Denver's a better team right now, and until Toronto gets quickly back and gets RJ back, like officially, I think it's going to be tough. I'm kind of out on Toronto in a general sense. Don't really want to play them too much. I know Grady Dick's been playing minutes too, but I'm not thrilled about it.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I think Toronto has going for them here is they're at home. Denver going into Toronto, I think the one thing they have going for them is they're at home. Jakob Poeltl could play really solid minutes. This could be one of those games you get like a 35-40 Jakob Poeltl game. Don't mind Barnes, but yeah, I mean, overall for me, again, I should like this game more than I actually do, but I don't love it. All right, we got Detroit at Miami. 221 total in this game. Miami, 8.5 point favorite. Thompson still out for Detroit. Kevin Love out for the Heat. Let's go Detroit here first. What do we like here for the Pistons?
Not much, Stevie. I do think. Listen, man, and I kind of saw this coming preseason, Stevie. So I hate to bring up preseason because it's just preseason. But Cade Cunningham was kind of on a tear for preseason. And he's had some tough matchups, Stevie, but he's still been fairly productive. If there's one guy I'm going to play in the spot, it's Cade. I know for you it's probably Duren because, big men just have upside. He gets 15 rebounds here, 20 points, like he's going to nuke the slate. But I think Cade is – I'm going to start to consider Cade matchup proof if he keeps playing close to this level. And I think he may be headed that direction, Stevie. So at 9K, getting a little bit of a discount on Tatum, a little bit of a discount on Trae Young in terms of, just spending in that upper 9K range. I'm not saying he outscores those guys today, but I think for tournament, Stevie, he's not going to get nearly the kind of ownership that a Trae Young's going to get against Washington. I'm kind of willing to bite here on Cade.
Yeah, I mean, I've been fading him. I feel like every slate he's been on, and it hasn't been working out fantastically. So I'm probably going to fade him again just because I feel like I'm very pot committed at this point. Miami,
I do like him long term. Like he was one of my sneaky.
Oh, I like him long term too. He's just had like on paper, he's had tough matchups. Like he's had the Pacers, Cleveland, and Boston, and he's performed well. So like I hear you, and I understand why you like him here. I just hate the pace of this game potentially. I mean, if this game stays close and Detroit's keeping it close, Cunningham's probably cooking again.
Yeah.
On the Miami side of things, I mean, they're a really tough team to play when they're all healthy. We're going to talk about this all year. I feel like they're just a team that is very balanced. I mean, they obviously have Jimmy Butler, and you could call him a superstar. And no one would really argue with you. But through the first couple games this season, no one has a usage rate over 25%. No one wants to take over games right now in Miami.
Yeah, man. I'm with you 100%. It's the ultimate team, if you will. But Stevie, I think we're going to play someone 4,400, another value play here. We've got Jovic at 4,400, who's been nice for fantasy production at his price. I'm outside of that, I am not thrilled about this team at all. I think this is a good spot for Miami, but I don't know where the production is going to come from. Rozier's been fine, right? Like he's 6,300, but he's still not. I don't think his upside is anything near where it was when he was in Charlotte. Give me Jovic for value, and give me Cade on the other side for upside.
Fair enough. Jovic is someone I've talked about on the podcast a couple times already this year, so don't mind him. I can see Bam crushing in the spot, but
Bam hit his rebound prop against Charlotte also, by the way. Another one in the book, Stevie, just so people know. Like his line was 10.5 and he got 11. Like it was barely, but he did it.
Yeah, people People need to recognize that rebounding prop against that team, especially when you have a dominant rebounder too. Cleveland at New York facing the Knicks, 222 total in this game. Knicks a 2.5-point favorite. Strus out for Cleveland. Precious, Mitch Rob out. Hart questionable for the Knicks. Let's start with Cleveland side. What do you like here for Cleveland?
I feel like this is a weird slate, Stevie. Because this should be a slobber knocker here. Evan Mobley to start the season has been pretty good, Stevie. Now, the problem is he's 7,900. Like, I know he had a 50 ball against Toronto, but he's pretty much stabilized there around 40. I want to take a chance here in terms of maybe he's the guy to get to in a balanced build. But I'm just not thrilled about this spot overall with the Knicks. Like, I do feel like this is one where it should be close. Like, Cleveland's kind of blown out everybody they played so far, Stevie. And so is Donovan Mitchell finally going to have a game where he gets pushed? If so, I know it doesn't feel right on paper, but I kind of like Donovan Mitchell today tremendously, because this might be the one game so far this year that he has to stay on the floor and produce if his team is going to win going into the Garden. We know people love playing in the Garden. I know that's not statistical, but I kind of like Donovan Mitchell at 8,700. I think he's another sneaky tournament play that people just won't get to today a lot. Oh, man, you got him muted. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, I did. So a lot of people know I have Achilles tendonitis, and my brace is like, I have like a full boot that goes all the way up past my calf right now, and it is itching me like crazy, and I didn't want everybody to hear the Velcro because I was loosening it. So that's why. But yeah, hey, I had to, get you a mute in there. I like Mobley. I think this is a spot that he could perform well if this game stays close. Don't mind the Mitchell call. It's one of those things where, like, when you start building out teams, how much Mitchell are you going to get to? And, obviously that's good because, those are the types of guys that have that tournament upside. No one's playing. Outside of that, I mean, not a lot to love here. A lot of the cheaper guys, a lot of their production has come in garbage time. So I'm not like looking into this stuff too much. On the Knicks side, Cleveland's been very, very stout defensively. I mean, the one thing that I've noticed so far from Cleveland is like they're struggling a little bit with two guards. So if I'm playing anybody from the Knicks, I think it's, potentially taking some more shots on McBride, potentially Bridges. But I mean, the biggest thing here is like seeing if Josh Hart plays or not. Because if Josh Hart misses this game, it's going to open up a lot of value on the Knicks side of this game. Back-to-back mutes. We both did it. That's fantastic.
Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry, guys. Like, forgive me. Maybe it's because we're starting so early. I'm just out of rhythm. But if Josh Hart is out, like, OG's already playing minutes, but I think his production should increase here, right? See, like, we should get some OG production increasing here. And at 5,200, like, I think that could be valuable. How will that impact Jericho Sims? I know they're not the same position, but maybe Jericho Sims plays 20 minutes, like, actually in this game, Stevie. And at 3,300, I'm perfectly fine with that. Like, I think this would be a good spot for him. I think Mikal Bridges at 6,500, his production should increase also. I just think all these guys, like, their production should go up. Cameron Payne, does he see a little production bump? So those are, I'm with you. I just think it would open up a lot for the Knicks here, and hopefully they could keep this thing competitive, and play till the end.
Crazy. The NFL injuries this year, I feel like, have been just wild. Christian Kirk out for the rest of the season with a broken collarbone. It's wild. Chicago at Memphis, 233 total. Memphis a 7.5-point favorite. Chicago, nobody on the injury report, but big one here. G.G. Jackson out, Kennard out, Spencer out, Williams out, John Morant questionable. We will talk about this when we get to that side, but let's start with the Chicago side. Zach LaVine kind of doing what we expected. Definitely the usage we've wanted. Kobe White had a absolute banger the other night against Milwaukee. I think you're going to see that from time to time this year. I think he has one of the highest ceilings on the entire team. White does. Like, we've seen him in the past, like, have these really, really big games. So, what are you doing with Chicago in this spot against Memphis?
Yeah, man. Zach LaVine is another guy I was high on for the season, Stevie. And as long as he's in this mid 7K range, I know he's going to have to score points, but the big games are coming. What I like so far this season, Stevie, the peripherals have been there also. Game 1, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 5 rebounds, 1 assist against Milwaukee, 9 rebounds, 3 assists against OKC. And the points were there, and he only scored 22 in that game, had 7 turnovers in that one also. So, I mean, if he just pushed it, Stevie, he picked up, 28 points, 6 more fantasy points. He's around 48 now, which has him closer to 50. He's 70. In that game, he was 7,100. So, Zach LaVine, I think, is a guy that, we need to continue to play at these price levels. Same thing for Kobe White, because at some point they're going to hit 8K and it's not going to be exactly the same value. So those two guys are the big ones for me from Chicago.
So I will say this, right? It's a very small sample size. We're like 2 or 3 games in, but Chicago leads the NBA in pace and Memphis is fourth. Both of these teams have played very fast in the first few games here. A lot of interest in LaVine. I like White as a tournament pivot. So those are the 2 guys that I'm probably getting the most exposure to in this spot. And then on the Memphis side, I mean, slate breaking news right here with John Morant, whether or not he goes or not. Hopefully we get this early in the day and not have to like worry about what we want to do, because I mean, if Ja were to sit here, we'd have a lot of potential plays on the Memphis side. So watch this news. What do you like here from Memphis?
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, the Ja situation is a big deal, but
massive, right? Like,
yeah,
if he sits,
like if he sits, like now you're opening up some different things for Bane.
Marcus Smart, right?
Marcus Smart,
5,500,
yeah. Like it's just going to
Scottie Pittman Jr. like,
who's already been playing well. Santi Aldama, like it's just this whole team is going to be a value pretty much. So I like what we're seeing here.
See, I hate what we're seeing here. I hate how they're spreading out the minutes so much. It drives me crazy. But I mean, Ja being out.
I'm saying if Ja is out, my bad. I didn't make that clear. If Ja is out, I like what we're seeing in terms of where we'll be able to peg some production. But clearly, I think, Marcus Smart, Scottie Pippen, like you start there and then kind of branch out if you want to spend up Bane. And you may not even need to get the spend up on Bane because he's 7,600. And if I'd almost just rather play Zach LaVine at 74. I know it sounds crazy, but I think I still value LaVine more than Bane, but that's just a personal thing for me. But Smart, Pippen, absolutely Santi Aldama, like those 3 guys, sign me up.
Houston at San Antonio, 221 total. Houston a 2.5-point favorite. Steven Adams questionable. Trey Jones and Vassell out for San Antonio. Let's start with the Houston side. What do we like here for the Rockets?
So Houston is another interesting team, Stevie, because I really expected Fred VanVleet to kind of come out the gates playing fairly well. And he's not taking enough shots, right? Like, you give him, like, he took 18 in the first game, but then 9 and then 12. Like, that's just not enough shots for him to get the serious upside we're looking for. But, our big man here, Mr. Şengün, he's been spectacular to kick off the season. Obviously, that Spurs game didn't take enough shots either. But the matchup with Charlotte took advantage of it, 25 and 18, but then 16 and 15 in the Memphis game, Stevie, which tells me clearly that's real, right? Obviously, a little weird situation there with the Spurs game, but they're facing them again. I don't care. Like I think Sengun at 8,900. I think he's a good play, and so he's one of my favorite targets here out of all of these guys from Houston.
Yeah, I mean, I like Green and Sengun. Both of those guys I think are very much in play. On the Spurs side, I mean, Sohan is 5,600, and we kind of know that like Jones is already out, so like Sohan, I mean, 5,600 for him. I think that he is going to see the increase in minutes, not Chris Paul. Wimby in any matchup is in play. He's going to have these games where he just goes for 70, and you just ride the block steals and him just absolutely dominating the boards. What do you like here for San Antonio? We get 3 mutes on one show. We might not ever be able to do another 8:30 show again.
The problem is I don't even know I'm muted. Like I think I'm doing it subconsciously and then not subconsciously unmuting when it's time for you to speak. I do want to say, isn't Harrison Barnes like the most San Antonio Spurs player ever? Like that's just the right veteran fit for him. Sidebar there. Sohan absolutely in play. You talk about Wimby. Like at some point, Wimby's going to pop here. The guy that surprised me is Champagne. I'm saying Champagne to be funny. It's Champagne. Just wanted to throw something. But Champagne at 4,500. It's not about his fantasy production the past 2 games, even though that's a part of it. It's about his minutes, Steve. So if he's going to get 25 to 28 minutes, I think that's reasonable here for a matchup with Houston, especially if Jones is out. That's another body there down, and maybe he gets those extra 2 or 3 minutes of production. So really like him. I'm not, like completely sold on this Chris Paul. He just doesn't shoot enough now. Like we need Chris Paul taking at least 15 shots, Steve, for him to probably hit some real upside. And I just don't think that's what he's going to be in this offense.
Yeah, I mean, and don't forget that like Trey Jones being out is a really solid like minutes bump for guys around this range potentially. So Utah at Dallas is where we finish it out. We got a 234 total. Dallas a 10.5 point favorite. Exum out. Kleber questionable. Let's start with the Utah side. Definitely have this game circled. Will, I mean, the pace of this game should be good. The defense should be non-existent, and definitely a game that I have circled. What do you like here for Utah?
Oh man! So can we, Stevie, give a round of applause for our good friend Lori Marketing kicking off the season? Seems to be healthy. Was incredibly productive in that Memphis game, Stevie. And then in the Golden State game, obviously, the game gets out of hand. And at 7,700, he might be one of the best tournament plays on the slate. And I'm not exaggerating. He could literally, if he's going to be healthy and playing like this season, I know we're early. This is a guy that I want to get into some lineups big time. So really like him, want to highlight him. He's one of my favorites. I think Keontae George will come along. Like his minutes are fine. I don't know if he's going to be a high upside play right now, but once again, I do think the minutes will come. I think sneakily, Jordan Clarkson has some upside in this spot. Stevie, guy's going to come off the bench, probably take, I would say 12 to 15 shots if I had to guess, right off the bench. So this is a guy that I think is, while he's priced in the mid range, I think his usage is going to be much better than even some of the other value plays we see. So I like him a ton. But Laurie Marketing, man, I think there's another spot where he could go for 50.
Yeah, Walker Kessler really disappointed last time out against Golden State. That game went small. It got out of hand very fast. So kind of just note that if you're interested in going back to Kessler, I don't necessarily hate the idea. You mentioned Marketing, really high usage rate to start the season. Like what they're doing with like John Collins. I wish that like he just have some bad shooting nights and like his price drops to like 4,800, we could play him. But he's had a lot of usage. He's had the ball in his hands a lot with that second unit. Dallas side of this game, obviously, anytime you get Luka out there, is Dallas too crowded now with Klay Thompson and Kyrie and Luka? Like, it's just one of these things now. We're not going to have those like Luka goes for 80 fantasy point nights like once a week.
I think they're a little bit too crowded, but I think it's going to help them long term. Like at this point, it looks like Klay is probably going to give them. I would guess, Stevie. I would guess Klay finishes the season averages somewhere between 17 and 19 points. And it could very well be 21, but I think they brought him there to kind of help them not have to carry so much of a load, a guy that can space the floor. And as a result, I think you're going to see there are going to be some nights where Luka pops, but I don't think he's going to have to pop every night. And hopefully the price coincides with that, because I do like the fact that Kyrie Irving is 7,500, Steve. Like, I think that's a really nice price, where last season he was hovering more in the $8K to $8,200, $8,300 range. We might even get Kyrie to come down to 7,200-ish. Maybe that's asking for a little bit too much, but I do like the price on him. I think that's enough meat on the bone where if he flashes some upside, if it's his night, Stevie, he could go for 45, 50 fantasy points. So I think Kyrie would be my favorite here. I know, Derek Lively had a disappointing second start, but this team's going to play big. Lively should have to be on the floor. He's 5,100. I think it's a good spot for him also.
I don't think I want to sleep on Klay.
Yeah, I get it.
I think that Klay kind of really fits in here, like as far as like going to get a lot of open shots, when you're worried about.
Have you seen any of the clips? I mean, he's had wide open three.
Wide open. Yeah.
He went there for the wide open shots. I think. Like,
well, what's crazy, and this isn't a dish at Draymond, but like now he has Kyrie and Luka getting him the ball instead of Draymond getting him the ball. Like, Steph obviously got Klay the ball and got Klay open a lot, but now like, it's Kevin Durant Golden State days, right?
Yeah,
like you have to really worry about Luka and Kyrie, and it's going to leave Klay to hit these wide open shots. He had a huge fourth quarter the other night. They tried to make a run, wasn't able to against Phoenix. So yeah, I mean, I like Klay. That's it. That's it for this slate. 9 games. Pumped. I mean, I like Mondays. I like getting back in the swing of like NBA, MLB kind of stuff. Really focus on NASCAR and football on the weekends right now. So 2 more weeks of the NASCAR season. It's crazy. I feel like we were just talking about Daytona. But that's how life goes. Let's play the morning grind game, and then we'll get out of here. Favorite play under 5K to go 7X. We talked about a lot of players in the like 52 to 5,800 range. Anybody that you're really liking here under 5K?
Oh man, I think for me right now, Stevie, like if I had to just kind of focus on maybe no news, maybe everybody plays. Give me Christian Braun against Toronto. What I'm seeing from him.
I think there's 2 options the night before, and he was one of them. The other one that I really like here is Jovic.
That was my other one. Yep.
Talked about him quite a bit over. It was on Friday, right? I think it was Friday. But yeah, I mean, Jovic is someone that's really interesting to me this year. I think that there's a good role for him potentially on this team.
Yeah.
Over 8K to go under 5X. And like for what it's worth, really quick, like going back to the Jovic thing, these plenty of minutes too. Like there's plenty of minutes.
Yeah.
What was I thinking? Like, with Kevin Love out. That's what I was thinking. Kevin Love out, like personal. So yeah, I mean, there's enough minutes to go around for Jovic. But anyway, sorry. Over 8K to go under 5X. Who's your bust today?
I could be wrong, Stevie. I don't think I am, though. Give me Scotty Barnes against a tough Denver team at 9,100.
Yeah, I mean, the matchup's really tough. This guy has been proving me wrong every slate. Give me Cade Cunningham. Really tough matchup against Miami.
Ooh, Stevie.
Game is going to slow down. I listen. I like Cunningham long term. I want to see him, get a matchup that I feel like I can really take advantage of, like the Spurs or somebody, right? Like give me San Antonio or like Utah or somebody. Give me one of these teams that have been, give me one of these teams that have been really bad against point guards or something, because man, I feel like, and like he's crushing these good teams. Like, what is he going to do against a bad team? Like,
he's going to give you 30 fantasy points to spite you.
Oh, probably. I mean, you know how the game works.
Oh yeah.
Love a guy one day and the next day you hate him and he goes for 70. Favorite 6X play today? Who do you got?
Man, listen, this is pretty much my favorite play on the slate. I've talked about him enough. He's kind of been my barometer for where I'm going to make my spins, Stevie. It's Trae Young, man. 9,800 against Washington. Boy, has he been incredibly productive to start the season. Another up-tempo matchup. Really like him.
See, I thought you were going to take mine when we were talking about the game. I thought you were going to take mine. Give me Zach LaVine. Absolutely love Zach LaVine today. I think this is a fantastic spot for him against Memphis.
Yeah.
Favorite GPP ceiling play, any price range. Who do you think has the highest ceiling on this slate?
It's going to be weird, Stevie, because I really like Lauri Markkanen in this spot today. I like him a ton for the price. He's 7,700. This is a spot with Dallas. Give me Lauri, man.
And for what it's worth, like, we know that guys like Jokic and Luka could go for 80 on any slate. So, like, the whole purpose of this question when I sent it to everybody was to try to find that other, like, person, right? Like, to try to find that other person. I think Wemby has a huge ceiling today. He really hasn't had that, like, big game yet. The minutes are good, like 28 and 30 minutes. Like, he hasn't had that big, like, Wemby 5, 6, 7 block game, grab 10 rebounds and score 30 actual point games. These two teams just faced, and he had 29 actual points, 3 blocks, an assist, and 7 rebounds. Like, he was 3 rebounds away from like 50 plus fantasy points. So I think, like, this is a game you want to get some exposure to Wemby. I like his overall ceiling today. Who's your Let's Get Weird GPP play of the day?
So this one is interesting because we're going to go against each other, and one of us is going to win. And that's Cade Cunningham at 9K, man.
Oh, no, go for it.
Cade at that, bro.
But I think that's a great answer to the question, though. Like, he is a Let's Get Weird GPP. No one's going to play him today. So I think that's an excellent answer to the question.
Yeah. Nobody.
So, yeah. I mean, I hear you. I think that's a good answer to the question. I don't know. Like, I hate this question night before because it's really hard to kind of judge where ownership is going to be just overall. This guy could come in a lot higher than like I originally thought, but I don't think so. Give me Evan Mobley. Talked about him when we were breaking down that game. Kind of really like this spot for him. I think this is, like you said, a game that could potentially stay close, and it's kind of what we've been wanting for him just in general. So, I like this one. Let's go to the betting portion of the show. Really quick. Any interest here in any bets night before?
The Charlotte Hornets playing, and is there a center against them? I'm just kidding. I know Charlotte is.
I mean, yes. That's
my
what you
lock
want.
bet of the year, like right now. It's just
I'm gonna bet that so many times this year.
Yeah,
like, no joke.
Yeah. What I will say though is my second one, Stevie, has been Zach LaVine. And Zach LaVine's been coming at like 18.5, 19.5 points. He's 19.5 today, up to 20.5 at some spots. Give me Zach LaVine more than 19.5 real points. Like that's going to be a staple for me until I think at some point, Stevie, real soon, he's going to start closing at 21, 22.5. I think we're still getting really good value on him at that number. He was 18.5 over the weekend. It was crazy.
Yeah, what's funny was that was my bet. That was my player prop. So
Well,
I don't have another one. Like I didn't write down two. I like Zach LaVine a lot today. So yeah, I mean that was my bet as well. I'm quickly trying to see Washington. Atlanta's not up yet.
and over the weekend, Stevie, I took him over points, which was 18.5, and PRA, which was 26.5. Like, I just think they've been really low on him, and they haven't adjusted to DeRozan leaving yet. I just feel like they haven't made a proper adjustment.
What do you think? I like this Markkanen line at 21.5 points. I think that line is super solid.
Yeah.
You like oh, they don't have his point, rebound, assist up yet, but 21. I'm going to take the over on Markkanen at 21 points. That's going to be my other bet here to give everyone a pivot. So, Chief, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Negative, man. I appreciate you having me on. It's been a pleasure, and my good sir, please get some rest, and I'll see you again real soon.
Yeah, I'll get rest in 2 weeks. NASCAR season will finish, and I'll have a little bit more sleep on my hands. So, appreciate you again. Going early on this one. Just got an alert that Jordan Mason, headed to the locker room. Man, just all these injuries just kind of stink. So, wishing all the people that in the NFL that keep getting banged up, quick and speedy recoveries. It feels like there's been a lot of injuries this year. So, hope everyone has a fantastic Monday. Appreciate it, you all being back on the grind with us. If you haven't already, subscribe to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind YouTube page. Go follow us over there on Twitter. If you ever have any questions, I'm always got the Twitter up. So if you have any questions, hit me up. We'll be back tomorrow talking NBA solo pod because there's only like 3 or 4 games on Wednesday or Tuesday. So appreciate everyone. Back tomorrow. Good luck. We'll see you then.